heteropatriarchal notions of pleasure, that sometimes that sex is being done unto the woman, but she's kind of taking that back and positioning herself as the dominant partner that's, again, asserting, you know, her pleasures and desires, that isn't being manipulated or coerced by other men, or also sometimes the narratives that we see in from male hip hop artists. So we also begin to see this autonomy that happens within, that we see that happens within hip hop. Oh my goodness. And so next we have Young M.A. And again, they are a queer hip hop artist coming out of Brooklyn, New York. And I think what's really great about looking at Young M.A. in comparison to Megan Thee Stallion is that, again, both, they are confidently and aggressively, you know, asserting their dominance and what they like in sex. Again, thinking about the ways in which hip hop, a lot of times those narratives are being told by men, and not allowing this kind of agency and freedom for women to kind of discuss their own pleasures. And again, I think what's unique about Young M.A.'s presence and growth as as an artist is that she's also kind of queering hip hop. So thinking about the ways in which that, again, hip hop is still male dominated. And then when women are inserted into hip hop, there's a lot of femininity that's attached to it. But Young M.A. kind of provides this very masculine queer persona and identity that, again, that's disrupting these very hetero patriarchal ideas of who belongs to rap or who belongs within the rap community, and also kind of disrupting these ideas of femininity and masculinity that's opposed on these gender binaries. And so in her song, Ooh, Young M.A. discusses how they like to have oral sex. And I think this is really interesting because we do, again, think about how oral sex is being used from a male perspective. So now we're kind of getting the inner workings of how queer women are engaging in sex and what they like and what they like to do. That's, again, is sitting outside of these normative understandings of what men are, how men are engaging with sex, and also how cis hetero women are engaging with sex. And so I think with Young M.A. does a really good job. You know, they're allowing this possibility of what queer hip hop looks like, and also kind of building this unique social cultural capital, you know, as a queer artist, and branding herself in these ways. And again, we kind of see this politics of pleasure being inserted because we're looking also at how queer women are thinking about sex, and how lesbian women and Black LGBTQ folks are thinking about sex that are now being inserted within hip hop that has been absent before. And I think what's also really great is that because of this social cultural capital that Young M.A. has built as an artist, they were also able to kind of engage in sectors of pornography, again, kind of highlighting this marriage between hip hop and sex work, and also just the ways in which that now women have control over certain images and understandings of sexuality that comes within the porn industry. So this ultimately kind of alleviates this form of exploitation that may come within hip hop, or within hip hop and in pornography, but again, also kind of queering these spaces that have been kind of reserved within hip hop and pornography for the male desire. And lastly, I think what's great is that within the song, Young M.A. discusses these sexual interactions that kind of, again, kind of pushes these understandings of contemporary notions of queer sex and queer possibilities and identity within hip hop. And so she kind of controls these narratives of what she wants to allow in. And so in an interview that she had with Charlamagne the God within the Breakfast Club, you know, he wanted more details about like what is going on, but she kind of had reservations of what she felt like she could tell and what she shouldn't tell. Again, kind of relating to this understanding of privacy that Black women should be allowed to have in hip hop when it comes to engaging what they want to share and what they don't want to share about their sexual experiences. And I think what's interesting is that, again, we're kind of looking at the inner workings of what queer sex looks like from this particular standpoint in hip hop that does kind of grant this form of protection that's, again, not necessarily seen within hip hop, but again, thinking about the ways that homosexuality is now being an important note to kind of create or extend this idea of representation. And so I conclude my paper pretty much understanding that with both of the narratives that Young M.A. and Megan Thee Stallion offer does kind of highlight this really interesting sex practice that's very radical in nature, because we're looking at a contemporary relevant relevance of hip-hop feminism in the context in which that Black women are actually engaging with hip-hop and pleasure in this very musical sphere in this contemporary realm that we're currently in. And I think also, again, kind of disrupting these normative understandings of heteropatriarchy and very male-dominant spaces of hip-hop is being queer, is being dismantled and disrupted from these perspectives. And I think ultimately that the silence with the silence that has been happening within hip hop, again, kind of is misinterpreted as compliance. And I think often, again, we have to realize that Black women do have this agency, and we, Black women want to have sex, and that's okay. I'm sorry. And so lastly, I think to close out, it's important to kind of recognize that with hip hop feminist discourse, we look at the ways that there's oftentimes these gray areas that are being kind of, that a lot of Black women are struggling with and meshing through within hip hop, where we kind of have to find these inner workings and these middle grounds, because again, we often forget that Black women, again, like I said, Black women do push and have always been a part of hip hop. And I think that it's unfair to kind of push and silence these narratives or deem these artists not to be as qualified or valid within their musical careers because they choose to talk about sex. And again, kind of reinform these institutions of respectability politics. And so furthermore, I think it's great that so many young artists are coming into the hip hop game, discussing, how they like to have sex, kind of claiming that agency, kind of define their roles in the bedroom with their partners, without these exploitative notions of sex that are, again, coming from male perspectives, but also thinking about how this is kind of still an act of resistance. Another thing that Joan Morgan talks about is, being able to critique hip hop from this hip hop feminist perspective, and the ways in which that some of these images can be manipulative and controlling when that agency is missing. And so I hope that, more hip hop scholars, even just within the realm of hip hop, that there can be some more validity and support that's rallied behind these artists that continue to kind of promote this sexual control and agency within hip hop. And so that's my work first page, and that is it.